Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. So you got the COVID vaccine because they told you to get it or they forced you to get it. Because as Joe Biden himself explained, it was your patriotic duty to get it, to protect yourself and protect others. Good people do that. And the only way we can stop the spread of this virus and return to normal life is by taking the vaccines. If you get the shot, you can have hot dogs on the 4th of July. Remember when he told you that? So you got the shot. And now, surprise, surprise, they are demanding that even after you got the shot, you wear a mask again, even when you're outside. What's going on here? Why are they saying this? There's got to be some reason for it. We've been wondering all week. So yesterday we asked the CDC to explain the reasoning behind it. They couldn't tell us. Today they did. What an explanation. It turns out that the COVID vaccines, those wonder drugs that were absolutely perfect, that were more impressive than the moon landing, the drugs you were not allowed to question in any way, don't actually work in the way they told us they did. The science is more complicated than we thought. There's still an awful lot we don't know. These are, after all, experimental drugs, and they're behaving like it. The bottom line is that a huge number of vaccinated people are getting COVID, and some of them are getting very sick, even dying. That's true around the world. It's true in Iceland, Gibraltar, Israel, in small countries with high vaccination rates that have seen big spikes in COVID cases. And it's every bit as true here in the United States. According to the CDC today, fully 3/4 of the people infected in a recent outbreak, for example, in Massachusetts, had already been vaccinated. The CDC announced that vaccinated people can carry the virus with them and they can easily spread the virus to others. As the CDC conceded, quote, breakthrough infections may be as transmissible as unvaccinated cases. Okay. So now we learned that virtually everything they told us about the COVID vaccine was wrong. Looks like we were right to keep asking questions. Keep in mind that if you had written any of what we just said on Facebook yesterday, you would have been censored immediately for misinformation, if not for a hate crime. And yet now, that's the official finding of the U.S. government. Surprised? You shouldn't be surprised because science can be like that. It changes quickly. It is never really settled, despite what they tell you. If the Biden administration had just admitted that from the very beginning, we'd be a lot better off right now. Most Americans understand that medicine is complicated. Even great medicines, chemotherapy, for example, don't always work. And you don't know when they're not going to work because there's a lot that you don't know. Most people can live with that honest uncertainty. They can handle the truth. What they can't handle is being lied to relentlessly by their leaders and then shamed if they ask questions. And that's exactly what's been happening. You remember just a few weeks ago, it was July 8th, that Tony Fauci was asked directly by a reporter whether this vaccine would work against the new Indian variant, the Delta variant of COVID. Now, the honest answer would have been, we're not sure, or we hope it does. But Fauci is a liar, so that's not what he said. Instead, as usual, Fauci pretended to know what he does not know and could not know. The answer, Fauci replied, is yes, it does. Fauci said that on the record, and he said it more than once. They all said that again and again and again every day, and they shouted at you if you asked a follow-up question. So you'd think with this new CDC announcement today, they'd be apologizing. At the very least, they'd be explaining how they got it so completely wrong. But they're not doing that, not even close, because that would require humility. It would force them perhaps to relinquish some of the immense power they have gathered to themselves over the past 18 months, and there's no chance of that. So what they're doing instead is blaming you for the whole thing. They're punishing the country for the disaster that they made. It's your fault. Here's the White House today announcing that a new round of crushing lockdowns could be on the way.
If scientists come to you at some point down the line and say, it is our opinion that there should be shutdowns and there should be school closures, you would do that?
Well, we listen to, like I said, we listen to the CDC and the expert and their guidance. The CDC is a body that is very well respected, and we follow their guidance.
Joe Biden, leaving in the helicopter from the White House lawn tonight, said exactly the same. Yep, new lockdowns could be coming. But you just heard the CDC is a body that is well respected, muttered the flack, as if repeating it again and again makes it true. The question is, respected by whom? How many times do you have to get it completely wrong before people stop respecting you or believing you? Is there any limit on that? And while we're at it, why are lockdowns the obvious response to a failing vaccine? Who thought that up, and what's the justification for it? Doesn't seem to be much. Look at the data from the UK. That's a country that has vaccination rates similar to ours here in the US. In Britain, authorities saw a big spike in cases of the so-called Delta variant about a month ago. But the British government did not reinstitute lockdowns. They did not force a new mask mandate. So what happened next? Well, COVID cases and deaths in the UK plummeted. So the question is, why does the United States need more lockdowns? Why the forced masking? Masks are of limited medical value, as the authorities once told us. They clearly hurt kids. They obviously damage society. You can't breathe when you wear one. Yet the Biden administration is now requiring masks. Here's the Surgeon General demanding that vaccinated people wear masks outside.
If you happen to have a lot of interaction with folks who are unvaccinated, let's say you're a parent like me who has young children at home who are not vaccinated, that's a circumstance where being extra cautious and wearing that mask, even if you're fully vaccinated, wearing it outside when you're in indoor public locations is an extra step to protecting those at home.
We're not even going to repeat for you for the third night in a row the actual data on the question of COVID and young people. Are your small children at risk of dying from COVID? No, not unless they have a profoundly dangerous pre-existing condition like leukemia, in which case beware. Otherwise, they'll be fine. That's what the numbers say. And yet there's the Surgeon General, whatever that is, telling you to wear a mask outside with your kids. This is crazy. Let's just say it out loud. And even the people who are enforcing the rules, demanding that you change your life, that you put your entire life on hold, don't actually believe the rules they're imposing on you. Look at this video of Nancy Pelosi from today. Now keep in mind, she just called for the arrest of people who don't wear masks on the Capitol grounds. And yet there she was just moments ago. Check this out.
Can we take off our masks just for the photo? Would that be allowed?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We have both.
Oh, so when masks are inconvenient for you, you get to take them off, like when you're flying in a private plane to Washington, or when you want a picture that shows your face. But anyone else who takes them off gets arrested. Right. And they're going. They're doubling down and tripling down. Tonight, congressional Democrats have called for a vaccine mandate in Congress. That means everyone in the building, members and staffers, would be required to get a shot that the CDC told us today doesn't work very well, and by the way, whose long-term effects cannot be known. But they're telling you they must get it. You must get it. Your kids must get it in order to return to school. The question is really, how long are Americans going to put up with this? What happens when large groups of people start to resist these mandates, as inevitably they will because they're too unreasonable, they're too irrational, they're not rooted in science? They're pushing us towards something awful. Maybe that's the point of threatening to arrest people who aren't wearing masks at the Capitol. Once they've done that, what will they do next? Call it the National Guard? That'd be fine with the media, apparently. Journalists are doing everything they can to convince you that emergency measures are absolutely necessary and that anyone who doesn't obey is a traitor to the country. Civil rights should be suspended in the case of COVID. They're lying to make that point. In Kansas City, for example, the NBC affiliate KSHB posted this report this week, and it scared the crap out of people. Why wouldn't it? Here's what it said, quote, Children's Mercy Hospital is operating to capacity not only because of COVID-19 cases among youths who aren't eligible to be vaccinated, but also due to ending mask policies. That was the report. Oh, wow, really? When you get rid of mask policies and when you don't make 3-year-olds get the vaccine, your hospitals fill up and millions die. The ICUs are flooded again, all because children and people who won't wear their masks because they believe in QAnon or they're racists. That's what they're telling you. And not just in Kansas City, everywhere. But is it true? Well, in this case, it's not true. Children's Mercy Hospital said it had no idea what the local news media were talking about. Quote, we continue to be able to meet the needs of our patients requiring hospitalization, the hospital wrote in a statement. The increase in children we're treating as inpatients is mainly due to respiratory illnesses that are not related to COVID. So in other words, no, in Kansas City, the hospitals were not flooded with QAnon believers who refused to wear their masks. They lied about that. So why would they be lying about that? What is all of this about? At the very moment we discover they have been telling us something that is not true, according to the CDC, they redouble their efforts to make you believe what all of us know is false. Listen to what one vaccine expert at the University of Maryland, a woman called Kathleen Newsel, said recently. This is what she said to the Washington Post. Quote, "We really need to shift toward a goal of preventing serious disease and disability and medical consequences, and not worry about every virus detected in someone's nose. It's hard to do, but I think we have to become comfortable with coronavirus not going away." We have to become comfortable with coronavirus not going away. What does that mean exactly? Alex Berenson has been writing about this subject since the day it arrived on our shores. He's a best-selling author. He writes now for Substack, which cannot be censored. That's why he writes there. He joins us tonight. Alex Berenson, thanks so much for coming on tonight. So if anyone has been vindicated, it's you. You, in my view, are a completely mainstream person. You spent your life in the mainstream of American media, and you have been vilified as an anti-vaxxer or a lunatic or a murderer because you've asked questions about the effectiveness of the vaccines. How do you understand, how do you respond to what the CDC told us today about that subject?
Well, sure. Well, I mean, we have so much to discuss, Tucker, but I have to say this, it's sort of the elephant in the room. Twitter, where I have, several 100,000 followers, has banned me again from posting, so I cannot post for at least the next week. It's very clear that I'm going to get dumped by the platform, that I'm not, that I'm going to lose my voice there. Because I'm not going to stop posting the truth. The thing that they've banned me for tonight, Tucker, is that yesterday night I posted about Pfizer's own clinical trial results for the vaccine showing that more people had died in the placebo arm overall, not from COVID, but overall, than in the vaccine arm, and basically that this meant that the vaccine does not appear, at least in this trial based on these results, to reduce all-cause mortality. Apparently, you are not allowed to say that. You are not allowed to quote Pfizer's own clinical trial results because it's misinformation. Now, nobody's ever said that I've fabricated anything. Nobody's even saying in general, I mean, I'm very, very careful. Once in a while, human beings make mistakes, but I correct those very quickly when they're errors of fact. Nobody said anything like that, yet Twitter is not going to let me post. So yes, Substack is the place to go if you want to hear from me. I honestly don't care whether people who sign up paid or free. I just need to be able to reach people. So going back to today, it's very clear that these vaccines are not a magic bullet. And we know from the data in the UK and in Israel that more people who are vaccinated are dying than not. And even if you adjust for age and you adjust for the fact that people who are vaccinated are sicker in general and older, you don't get numbers of preventing infection and serious infection that are anything like what was promised. So that's one issue. A second issue is this issue of the fact that because the vaccines are leaky and people who are not, ironically, there's this notion out there that the unvaccinated are a danger to the vaccinated when the reality is actually the reverse. And, this is some of the CDC guidance. Then we can pull back even further and say this. Right now, we know that deaths in the United States are much, much lower than they were a year ago and certainly several months ago. That probably the vaccine may have something to do with that. That probably has much more to do with seasonality and, frankly, to do with herd immunity. Another giant issue here is that we are not telling people who have gotten COVID and have recovered that they're probably safe and probably safer than people who didn't get COVID and got vaccinated. That's what the evidence looks like right now. I won't say that's definitive, but certainly the evidence is stacking up that way. So there are so many things that don't make sense about what we're doing right now. And frankly, I don't understand it either. I don't understand the push to vaccinate kids who aren't at high risk. I don't understand why we're not telling people honestly who have had COVID that they don't really probably need to be vaccinated. And I certainly don't understand why people like me can't talk about these things without getting censored.
This is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And I'm just afraid that the backlash against it will include a total abandonment of belief in any scientific authority whatsoever. I mean, these people are devaluing their own currency at a faster rate than I've ever seen anyone do. I mean, you want to live in a country where you can believe the CDC. I want to believe Anthony Fauci. You don't want to live in a country where there's no medical authority. I mean, don't you think we're moving toward that quickly?
I mean, listen, I had my daughter vaccinated this week, okay? She went in for her well child visit. She got her vaccines. And in the past, I never would have thought anything about that. And now, now I know, they've lied about COVID so much. They've lied about the effectiveness of this vaccine so much. I have questions. It didn't stop me from getting her vaccinated. But I think, yes, you're right. We are all questioning authority as we never have before, but how can we not?
That's right, because they're lying. They are absolutely lying, and we know that. Alex Berenson, Godspeed.
Keep telling the truth.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the southern border is open. It's hard to believe that's true, but it is true. It's not an overstatement. It's not some partisan talking point. Look at it. We did. In a brand new episode from our documentary series, we took an in-depth look at what is going on right on the border in South Texas. People who live there are afraid, really afraid, and there's a reason for that. Here's a clip from the episode. Arthur invited our team to a cookout with friends and family. While we were there, the Border Patrol stopped an eastbound train carrying illegal migrants right next to their property.
It sounds like the helicopters are coming to...
A police helicopter appeared overhead. The children fled the cookout and sought shelter inside the house. The men headed for the perimeter of the property with guns.
What's happening right now?
I guess the Border Patrol caught some illegals coming off the train.
Jared, your dad said to make sure to take the AR with you.
I mean, we got kids hanging out around a pool, and we're really worried about their well-being.
Everybody ducks inside and heads for a weapon.
I mean, I got a pistol right here, just in case.
Sometimes 10 times a day, the Arthurs ride the fence line along their property to see who's hiding in the brush.
You want to die? I don't.
That episode's called The Illegal Invasion because it is an invasion. It's now on Fox Nation. You can stream it whenever you like. Well, so it was a little over a year ago that Minneapolis was the epicenter of a revolution that completely changed our country. It was supposed to make it better. Whatever happened to Minneapolis? Well, tonight we're going to tell you. And the event that crystallized what happened to Minneapolis is a shocking execution that took place in broad daylight. Horrifying. We'll tell you what happened straight ahead on a special Inside the Issues edition of Tucker Carlson Tonight. Our leaders have never been safer or more secure. The federal areas of Washington, D.C. look like the green zone in Baghdad. Nothing bad happens there. The Capitol Police now have a bigger budget than the police departments of Detroit or Atlanta. But just outside this wonderland where our lawmakers live, tent cities are popping up everywhere in D.C. and in cities across the country. Those cities are full of drugs, weapons, and human waste. They're ignored, but not by our Kevin Cork. He's got a story on it. Hey, Kevin.
Evening, Tucker. This is frankly a shocking reality here in the nation's capital. Homeless encampments, as you point out, once relegated to pockets or quadrants of the city, now encroaching on once well-heeled neighborhoods, and neither the local nor national government seem compelled to act. Latest example, homeless encampments in the shadow of the venerable Watergate, which for now will stay, according to authorities, despite furious local complaints about drugs, harassment, human excrement, and even weapons. Similar camps have sprung up near the city's Burke Park, Gumpers Park, 9th and Mass, and right in the heart of DuPont Circle. And yet, despite repeated pleas to intervene over public safety concerns, the city, National Park Police, and the U.S. Park Police, at least for now, are refusing to dismantle those camps. This is, by the way, the city which has a burgeoning violence problem, spiking, in fact, over the past year, with murders surging in the city and shootings happening outside of Nationals Park and even over on 14th Street, which is a very popular restaurant neighborhood here in Washington. And Tucker, perhaps the most disheartening part of what's happening here is there doesn't appear to be any sort of righteous indignation or vocal criticism of the city's leadership that you would certainly expect, even as this once proud city continues to suffer. Tucker.
Kevin Cork, thank you for noticing that. I appreciate it.
You bet.
So it's not just Washington, D.C. In fact, across the country, cities are in trouble, but particularly in the state of Minnesota. Now, Minnesota for many years was so tranquil that people laughed about it, all those nice Scandinavians. They actually mocked Minnesota for being too nice. Not anymore. In a town just southwest of Minneapolis, a woman was beheaded on video in broad daylight and left in the street.
Shakopee police were called to that intersection. A search warrant reveals when they arrived, they found Thayer's decapitated body lying on the ground next to a car. Authorities say they have a suspect in custody, who multiple people tell Fox 9 was in a long-term relationship with Thayer, where domestic abuse was a consistent problem. Court records reveal the suspect was convicted on domestic assault charges in 2017 and was facing arson charges for allegedly trying to burn his apartment down. On the most recent charges, he was released on $50,000 bond this spring.
Kenneth Qualls is a former congressional candidate from Minnesota, a Republican. He's been thinking about why Minnesota has become a lot more dangerous than it used to be. He joins us tonight. Kenneth Qualls, thanks so much for coming on. What happened to Minnesota? Remember when they say Minnesota nice and people kind of make fun of your state because nothing interesting ever happened there? They didn't have a lot of beheadings. What changed?
Oh, absolutely, Tucker. You know, in fact, we've made Minnesota our adopted home state because we liked it so much when we moved here years ago that it changed drastically. And there's one answer to this and one answer only. It is really weak and poor leadership. You know, we are a much better country. We're a much better community than the leaders that serve us.
Well, that's for sure, but particularly in Minnesota, because I mean, everything about the state, in my opinion, as an American, is it's beautiful, tons of nice people. I mean, it's just, you know, it's clean, it works. And then all of a sudden, the people who run the state, particularly around Minneapolis, decided we're going to stop enforcing the law. So should we really be surprised that this kind of stuff happens?
Well, again, this goes back to leadership. You have a defund the police type of mantra going on with the radical politicians. Their budgets are actually smaller than they used to be the previous year. Crimes has gone up. They ignore that. They ignore the... One of the jobs of elected officials is their number one job is to ensure the safety of their citizens. And you don't get to choose which one of your job descriptions you're going to implement. You have a job description, and in my experience from the military, it's a dereliction of duty by not doing that number one job. And so this is what's happening. The criminals don't necessarily play by the same rules as we do. And unfortunately, the police officers, they've been feeling vilified. The morale is low. The numbers are down. Recruitment is down. And retention is down. And so we're left as a very vulnerable community. And the people in our communities, women, children, the elderly, these people that are most vulnerable are the ones that are the biggest victims of what we see today.
So you had almost 200 people murdered in Minneapolis this year, in the last year. It's the highest ever, I think. That happened because members of the Minneapolis City Council said, we don't need police. Police are bad. Let's defund the police. Why don't the families of those murder victims sue the crap out of the city council members and punish them for what they did? They did this.
Well, absolutely, they did do this, and there is a beginning to be an uprising around this, and it's one of the things that we're doing with Take Charge. I started a nonprofit at the beginning of the year to help take our country and our community back. It's really take charge of our families, our life, our communities. We don't need permission from federal government, from the state government, to take charge of our communities and really get back to the basics of what made this country great, the basics of what made the people great. It's really around faith, family, and really a pursuit of a better education.
Yeah, and self-defense. Kenneth Qualls, appreciate coming on tonight. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tucker.
So we've been telling you about censorship for about 5 years now, but it's accelerated. We've had no effect on it, unfortunately. Now, if you express political views that Silicon Valley and left-wing nonprofits don't like, you lose your banking services. One major online payments provider has just made that official. We'll tell you the details next.
Carlson Originals, exclusively on Fox Nation.
What is life like for the Americans who live along the Mexican border? We thought we'd find out. The high-speed chases, the burglaries, the mass lawlessness traumatize people who live in Uvalde.
Where's our federal government? Nobody's helping us out.
Our leaders deliberately created this crisis. Why did they do this? Not to help you. Welcome back to a live Inside the Issues special edition. Tucker Carlson tonight. PayPal is one of the biggest online payment providers in the world. If you want to do business online, and increasingly most of us do most of our business online, you're going to use PayPal. But maybe not anymore. PayPal has just announced a partnership with something called the Anti-Defamation League, which is an arm of the Democratic Party, to comb through financial transactions and target what they're calling extremists. So what's an extremist? Well, according to the ADL, which again, to be totally clear, is not an independent group, but an arm of the Democratic Party, which acts on behalf of the Democratic Party and the Biden administration, this show is extremist content. So are a lot of people who are not only mainstream, but moderate, but oppose the agenda of the Democratic Party. So there's that. At the same time, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, YouTube, and a lot of other big tech companies are working on a shared database of so-called extremists. That would be white supremacists and far-right militias. Nobody's for white supremacists or far-right militias. The question is, what is a white supremacist and a far-right militia? They get to decide. And that means they're shutting everyone down who criticizes the Biden administration. Jesse Kelly understands this. He's the host of the Jesse Kelly Show. He joins us tonight. Jesse Kelly, thanks so much for coming on. So maybe when people like you started complaining about online censorship years ago and were written off as some kind of paranoid wacko, the Republican Party should have paid attention and gotten a handle on the tech sector before they just basically turn this into an unfree country. That's my editorial. I'll let you take it from there.
Well, if we're going to sit around and wait for the Republican Party to actually grow a spine and get ahead of an issue, Tucker, then we're going to be waiting until we're older than Joe Biden is now. These people have never gotten ahead of anything. The Republican Party will arrive at the correct position on an issue at the precise moment it becomes too late to do any meaningful good. That's what they do.
So nicely put. I can't really add to it. So the tragedy of the ADL is here you have a group with, I think, a noble history, addressing an actual problem that has morphed into just the enforcement arm of the Democratic National Committee, but people haven't readjusted in their minds what it is. And so they have this unearned moral authority, which they use as a cudgel on behalf of the Democratic Party. Why does nobody say that?
Because people can't catch up, Tucker. These communists are moving so fast, normal people can't catch up. You're obviously all over it. I'm all over it. But people can't wrap their minds around what's actually happening. The commies are moving through every single institution to silence you, to silence normal people. You mentioned what an extremist is. To the communists who run Facebook and the ADL and PayPal and all these places, if you believe God created the earth, you're an extremist. If you believe in guns, you're an extremist. If you believe if you believe women's sports shouldn't be occupied by people who need a jockstrap, you're an extremist. These people think any sane, rational thought is extreme now.
So if you think that actually men can't have babies, then you can't do online financial transactions?
Well, that's the thing, Tucker. They're never going to stop. I want people to understand that as crazy as things are now, they don't think they're getting crazy at PayPal, at Facebook and whatnot. They think they haven't gone nearly far enough. They're not looking around saying to themselves, whoa, we've taken this too far. They're saying to themselves, why haven't we done more to shut these people up? Tucker, you were just spied on by the NSA. That should be the biggest story in the United States of America. They dropped it like a hot potato in 12 hours. And the president of the United States isn't going to do anything about it. He has the brain function of Major Biden, and the people around him are all communists too.
So, I mean, if they can prevent you from speaking, prevent you from defending yourself, prevent you from working at a job, prevent you from buying or selling things online, I mean, at that point, how are we free?
Well, we're not free. We're already not free, Tucker. Let's be honest. How many things could you go on TV or go on social media more specifically right now and say that would get you ostracized from society? Basic truths right now. They don't need laws. That's how this got so dangerous. All they needed really was corporate America. It's the most dangerous thing they ever took over besides the education system. As soon as they got corporate America, they'll shut down your bank account. They'll shut down your social media. They'll shut you out of life in general. Oh, no, they didn't throw you in prison yet, but they're just going to wait until the cameras are off.
Yeah. I think the trick is just to live like you're free. I guess. Stay cheerful. Remember, the promise is that it's a free country, and let's try and make good on that. Jesse Kelly, stay cheerful. Great to see you tonight. Thank you so much.
See you, bud.
So for more than 100 years, the ACLU, which is not always popular, by the way, among conservatives, defended civil rights. Civil liberties is the American Civil Liberties Union. That's what they did. Now they've decided that the Second Amendment is racist and therefore must be eliminated. So a civil liberties organization working to strip you of your civil liberties. Details ahead on this Inside the Issues special. One of the most bewildering things that's happened in the past few years is watching nonprofit organizations completely betray their core mission. Education organizations setting out to hurt children. Environmental organizations promoting crowding and illegal immigration, which hurts the environment. And of course, the watchdog fact checkers online who abet lying. But maybe no turnaround has been more bewildering than what's happened to the American Civil Liberties Union. An organization founded to defend civil liberties has now decided to attack civil liberties and strip you of your rights. The ACLU, in its most latest announcement, tells us the Second Amendment, one of your civil liberties, is racist. Quote, racism is foundational to the Second Amendment and its inclusion in the Bill of Rights. Is that true? We're going to be literal for a second and ask Colion Noir. He advocates for the Second Amendment for a living. He's a friend of ours, and we're happy to have him on tonight. Colion Noir, thank you so much for coming on. So the Second Amendment, both of us know exactly what's going on here. This is a power grab by the people in charge, and they want to keep you from defending yourself. But let's just take this literally for a minute, just for fun, because we're literal people. Is the Second Amendment racist?
No, the Second Amendment is not racist. Now, if you want to make the argument, you can make the argument that gun control is racist, and there are concrete facts to demonstrate that gun control has a history rooted in racism. But the Second Amendment in and of itself isn't racist. For Christ's sakes, we're talking about a country that got its independence by a group of people coming together with their own arms to fight off a tyrannical government. And then as a result of that, writing the Second Amendment so that we can continue to protect that country. So the notion that the Second Amendment is racist is honestly nothing but a red herring. Because if you can color the Second Amendment and make it seem like it's racist, then anybody defending the Second Amendment is inherently defending racism.
Well, that's exactly right. And I remember, I'm not an American history expert or anything, but I thought that men from a bunch of northern states took their own guns south to end slavery by force. They used the Second Amendment to liberate enslaved Africans. I mean, it's completely insane, as you pointed out.
Honestly, the book that the ACO is basing this off of is written by an author who is legitimately anti-gun. She literally said it in a conversation with the ACLU where she said she doesn't believe that the citizens should have semi-automatic guns, which, as you and I both know, that's nearly every gun in the country. Right. So that should tell you everything about what this is designed to do. All it is masking a anti-gun agenda under the cloak of racism. And they know exactly what they're doing. And I just hope that people aren't continuing to fall for this because they've been doing it for a long time now. And personally, I think it's kind of disgusting trying to utilize the racial past in this country to get the very people who probably need the gun the most away from the Second Amendment. I just don't understand it, and I don't get it. And then the fact that I'm merely on here talking to you as one of the most prominent two-way defenders in the country as a young black man is also kind of bewildering to me, considering.
I think you're absolutely right. And of course, we both know they do it because it works. And it's kryptonite for a lot of weak people, unfortunately. I appreciate your standing up for a foundational right that all of us were born with, Second Amendment. Colion Noir, thank you.
Thank you.
So Hunter Biden's up and at 'em, gets up early every morning, paints paintings, and he's been selling them to anonymous buyers. And they're so good, he's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars per. He's got no art training, never done it before. Could you do that? Some people are asking that question, and Hunter Biden has a response to them. It's profane, but we're going to air it anyway because it's that kind of show. We'll be right back.
Tucker Carlson Originals, exclusively on Fox Nation.
What is life like for the Americans who live along the Mexican border? We thought we'd find out. The high-speed chases, the burglaries, the mass lawlessness traumatize people who live in Uvalde.
Where's our federal government? Nobody's helping us out.
Our leaders deliberately created this crisis. Why did they do this? Not to help you, to help themselves.
Tucker Carlson Originals. New episode available now. Exclusively on Fox Nation.
Fox News.
So let's say you never painted anything before. You never picked up a paintbrush. And then one day in midlife, over 50 in fact, you picked up a paintbrush and you started sloshing it around on a piece of canvas and immediately your paintings sold for up to $500,000 a piece. You'd have to be amazing to do that. In fact, you'd literally have to be Hunter Biden to do that. And he is doing that. And the White House is not telling us who's buying those paintings. So for weeks, a lot of people, including people on this show, have asked questions about that arrangement. It seems a little bit, what's the word, corrupt. So today, Hunter Biden issued his official response to anyone who has questions about it. Here it is.
You seem to have good spirits about, this sort of kind of crazed narrative around your painting. I mean, how do you, what's your response to the people who are, coming after like the prices of the work or just, the collectors? I mean, what's been your response to that?
Other than them, I never said my art was going to cost what it was going to cost or how much it would be priced at. I'd be amazed, if my art had sold at, for $10.
So on the other hand, what is Hunter Biden supposed to say? He got paid millions of dollars by Simon & Schuster for a book that didn't sell. It's good to be Hunter Biden. It's kind of not his fault. He's just taking advantage of a situation that fell into his lap. Imagine being the guy interviewing him. Imagine being the executives at Simon & Schuster paying off the president's son. Those are the people who should be ashamed. Questions about that are, quote, crazed? Who is the guy who said that? Ugh. Josh Boswell is an actual reporter. He's a senior news reporter with thedailymail.com, and he joins us tonight. Josh, good to see you. So F them, huh?
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing response, given that, some of the people he's talking about, because he's talking about there are people who are criticizing the fact that he's making money off these paintings and that it's, a little bit ethically unsound, perhaps. Two of those people are actual former White House ethics chiefs. And so you've got George Bush's ethics chief, who was Richard Painter. I think he was interviewed on Fox, actually, about this. And then also Obama's ethics chief. So that's the guy who was serving when Hunter Biden's father, Joe Biden, was VP under Obama. Both of them have expressed serious concerns about this. And you know why? It's because it's going to be pretty obvious to Hunter Biden and then therefore maybe to Joe Biden as well, who bought these paintings, even though the White House has said that it's going to be completely blind. They're not going to know who bought them and for how much until, of course, he gets the check in the post.
So can I just also say, and I know you're not an art critic, but there's a corruption angle here, the tax avoidance issue, and the art markets are famously opaque and famously corrupt. But these paintings are also repulsive, and so there's a taste question. So anyone who pays a lot of money for a piece of art that crappy, shouldn't that person be known so we can make fun of him?
I mean, look, as you say, I'm not an art critic. I'm not here to judge. I've seen positive reviews. I've seen negative reviews. But I think the most concerning thing is about where the money's coming from and for what reasons it's being paid. And we're talking about from $75,000 for the smaller pieces up to $500,000 for some of the larger pieces. That's a lot, and people should know about it, especially because you have a commingling, it appears from the emails on Hunter Biden's laptop, a commingling of funds between Hunter Biden and his father. He was paying for bills on Joe's house, that kind of thing. Right. So I think it's important here to know where this money is going and who it's coming from.
Can I just ask you in closing, who was that bootlicker, the throne sniffer, the man totally without self-respect who was kissing Hunter Biden's butt and slobbering over him in that podcast that we played? Do you know who that was?
I'm afraid I don't know much of the background there to the podcast. I haven't heard much of it before, so I'm afraid I don't have an answer to that one.
Yeah. If he's married, I bet his wife hates him. No woman could respect that. It's pathetic. Josh, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.
That's about it for us tonight. We're completely out of time, and the week is over, by the way. If you want more, there's a brand new episode of our documentary series about illegal immigration at the border on foxnation.com. We'll be back, needless to say, on Monday and then every subsequent weeknight up until the following weekend at 8 p.m. Eastern. The show that is the sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink. And with that, we're taking a 2-day break from politics and being mad, and we highly recommend you do the same with the ones that you love. We will see you Monday. Have a great weekend.